Welcome to the CQC video training series. This is a spot topic video on checkboxes. In this video, we're going to look at checkboxes. And checkboxes are a form of button, and they are specialized for a situation where you want to be able to toggle something between two different states, off, on, true, false. In other words, a Boolean value. And you also want to be able to see the current state as well. And it does both those things in a very convenient way. So I've created a interface here under spot topics. So let's open that up and I'll size it down a little bit so I can see it all. And let's just create a default one here just to show basically what it does. I'm doing new buttons, and then I'll just do a field checkbox. And this is the default look for a checkbox. There are other ways we can do it, but this is what they look like by default, which is sort of the standard way that they look in something like Windows user interface. So there's a image to the left and text to the right, and there are two images and two pieces of text, one for when it's true and one for when it's false, and you can toggle between those. In this case, it's associated with a field oriented widget, so we need to associate it with a field. So I'm going to select the state field here, and I'll just select a light switch. So let's do external driveway. So now if the driveway light were to change state, this would flip between the true and false states. But we also want to be able to click on it and make it change states. So if we look at the actions for a checkbox, unlike a regular button, which just has an on click, this one has on true and on false click. So if you click it and you're currently in the true state, it will call the true action. And if you click it and you're currently in false state, it will do the false action. In our case, what we want to do is just flip to the other state for the light. So if it's currently true, then we want to flip it to false. So we'll just do devices, field right, and let's select that light that we picked, which was external driveway. And let's set it in this case to false. So we're going to flip it the other direction. And let's copy that, go over to the false, paste that in, and let's change it to true. So now we have the most basic sort of checkbox to control a light. So let's save that. And I'll save the interface here, and let's go load that up and look at it. So the light is currently off, and if I click it, it should toggle, and it does. So we see we change the image and we change the text, and we can click it back the other direction. Now, of course, we could have better text than that as well. So we could change this to light off and light on. So let's save that and reload. Okay, now sometimes you want to do sort of the opposite of what I'm doing here, which is I'm currently showing the current state with the text. In some cases, you want to actually have it say, what is it going to do when I click it? But that's usually more when it's in a more of a standard button sort of form. When you're doing it like this, you're typically showing the current state, and we'll show the other scenario here in a minute. But that's basically how a checkbox works, and you can associate them with fields or variables, and there's also a static version which just has its own internal state, and there are plenty of good uses for that. So let's look at another form of it. I'm going to just copy this and paste it. And in this case, we're going to change the look to be more like a button. So we will want to have the text and the image centered, and we're going to use some different images here. I'll use some standard button type images. So for the false, let's pick just a standard button. So we'd say this is false, so we would want it, well, in this case, for both true and false, we want it to basically look the same. Actually, let's pick a broader one than that. So that's the square. We want a medium button pressed or unpressed. Okay, so something like that. And we also want to have the same for the true. Now, what we've got now, you can see over here, we haven't sized it up yet, but now we have the button and the text both centered. So let's size that to fit. And we have something like this. And in this case, what you generally want to do is flip the text so that you are showing what's going to happen when you click it, not what's currently the case. So let's do that here. So we'll change this to turn on. So it's currently, if it's currently false, we want to turn it on. And if it's currently on, we want to turn it off. So let's save that and go reload it. In this case, it's currently off, or it's currently on. We can see up here, and so we're saying click it to turn off, and then it turns to click it to turn on. So those are the basic two scenarios, and almost all of your uses will be of that sort. You can also put the image to the right if there's some good use for that as well. And when you do the static one, keep in mind that it's your responsibility to flip the state of the widget when it is clicked. It won't flip automatically. It just has an internal state, and it doesn't change automatically just because you click it, because in some cases you might decide you don't want to change the state. So it's your responsibility in that case. When you're associated with a field or a variable, then it will just follow the state of the field or variable. Now you may also want to deal with sometimes values that are not just true or false. I picked a light switch for this demonstration here because it's very simple, but you might also want to toggle between two values of a field where there's more than one value, and you can do that also. So let's look at an example of that. Let's go back over here, and we'll just do this particular checkbox here. Let's change it to use a different field here. So let's go to the music renderer, and we'll set it on the media state, which shows whether it's playing, stopped, paused, that sort of thing. Now that means that we don't have just a true or false value anymore. So how do we know when to say that it's true or false? And to do that, we have a set of expressions over here. And normally all you really need to do is just one of them, typically the true one. If it's not true, then it's false. So let's set that up. And by default, the expression type is just is true, which works perfectly for a Boolean type value. But in our case, we need to check for a specific value. So let's say is equal, and we'll set it to playing. So now that means that when the media state is playing, we're in true state. So let's change our text as well. So just like before, we want this to be a toggle, or to show what it's going to do. So if we're currently false, that means that we're not playing. So let's say play. And if we are currently playing, that means we want to do a pause. And we also now need to change our actions. So in this case, let's change the field to the music renderer's transport field. Notice that we're not writing to the same field that we're using to set the state, which is completely legal. And in fact, we couldn't write to that field because it's read-only. So if we're true, that means that we're playing. So we want to change the current, we want to send a pause, basically. So let's go over to the false and do the opposite. So music renderer, transport, and now we're paused, so we want to do a play. So if I got that right, then we should now have a button that will toggle us between paused and play. And I also have some music playing, so let's go over here to the music renderer driver and just open up the raw driver spelunker. And so if we go down here now, we see that it's playing. So if we go reload now, so now it shows that we are going to pause, so it knows that we're playing. So if I hit that, it goes to play. If we go over here, we can see that it now shows paused. And if I go back and hit again, it goes to pause. And I've come back over here, it should go to playing, and it did. So that's how you deal with that sort of situation. So obviously, checkboxes are quite fundamental. They're used, as you would imagine, all over the place in user interfaces, just as they are in standard Windows programs. There are so many places where you want to toggle between two values and display those states. Of course, if you just want to display and not toggle, then there are other widgets to do that, such as Boolean image and Boolean text. So you only use the checkbox if you want to both display and toggle. So that's it. We'll see you in the next video.